I'm Andrew Welch from NY Studio 107, and today I'd like to give you a brief introduction to a plugin for the craft CMS called SEOmatic. SEOmatic is a plugin that takes care of doing a ton of modern SEO for you, and we've just installed it, so we get a nice little screen that gives us a summary of it and says, let's get started. So let's do it. Now, the page that it takes you initially to is the site meta page. And this page contains everything that is globally defined for this site. So you've got the SEO site name, you've got the default title, and this is all the information that you're going to put in here is used site-wide and is used by default if nothing else is provided. So we've got our name and our title, and then we can choose whether the name should appear before or after our title and what the separator character is going to be on it. And the site description, let me just scroll here nicely. This is a description of the site, and again, this is a default that will be used site-wide if nothing else is provided. When you first install SEOmatic and you look at it, it may seem daunting because there's a ton of information that you can fill in. The important thing to keep in mind is that you don't have to fill everything in. Anything that you don't fill in will just not be rendered when it renders the meta for your page. But the SEO description is pretty basic, and we also put a nice description of each field in SEOmatic, and often with links to other pages that will give you more details on it. But the description is something that is used by search engines. An important thing to keep in mind about it is it really should be unique for every page, and here we're just setting the default. The SEO keywords is something that people used to think was important, and in fact it got so abused that Google actually doesn't even look at it anymore. Still, some other search engines do, so we provide a field for you entering the keywords for your page in a nice tokenized way. And again, keep in mind that this is just the default keywords. This is what's going to be used if nothing else is specified. We've got our site SEO image. Again, this is just our default site-wide image. If nothing else is specified, this is the image that will show up in your Twitter cards and Facebook Open Graph and all that fun stuff. We let you choose a transform if you want to apply a transform to the SEO image. And we also let you pick what type of Twitter card you would like. In order for the Twitter cards to work, you do have to specify a Twitter handle on the social media page, which we'll get to. But we also let you pick a transform for the Twitter image, and it gives you some nice hints in here about the sizes that they probably should be. I did it this way to give people flexibility of letting them have the transform, do whatever is appropriate for their SEO image. Same thing with Facebook Open Graph. You can choose between two types, either a website or an article. Again, everything that we're setting here are your defaults, where if you don't override them with anything else, this is what it's going to use. So you can kind of consider this the fallback. And we also let you specify a image transform for Facebook because it likes different sized images than Twitter does for the Open Graph image. And we also have down here a site robots meta tag, which lets you pick what should Google and other search engines do when they get to this particular page. All is the default because usually you want them to index it. But let's say you're working on something in development, you might set it to no index so that it doesn't index it. And we also have a site search links box, which I won't really get too much into, but basically it lets you provide a search field that will appear on Google's actual search engine results page. and you just set up what your target and keywords are, and it will do it. Robots.txt is we provide a default robots.txt file here. Web crawlers look at this primarily to see where the sitemap is, but you can also tell them what user agents are not allowed, what directories are not allowed, all that kind of good stuff. So that is the site meta page, and this can be thought of as the site-wide default information for your page. So let's take a look at the site identity page. This page specifies everything about the entity that owns the page. So for instance, we have fields for the Google site verification, the Bing site verification, and this will render the meta tags that Google and Bing look for to verify your website. We also let you specify your Google Tag Manager ID. If you're using Google Tag Manager, it will render the script code for you, so you don't have to do it. If you're using Google Analytics, again, you can just enter your tracking ID here. Choose whether or not you want it to automatically send a page view. Generally, you want that on. And you can also pick what other Google Analytics modules you want it to include. Then we get down to the site owner entity. This is the entity that owns the website. So it's either an organization or a person, and then you have a number of subtypes to pick from. And depending on what subtype you pick, there may be even further subtypes. So for instance, if we do a local business, then we can say, well, this is child daycare. And this is just letting Google and other search engines know what is this thing that actually owns this website. And there's a bunch of other fields down here for, the standard things like the entity name, entity URL, entity brand is, the logo of the company that owns the particular page. And again, any of this information you can either include it or not include it as you see fit. If you don't want your telephone number listed, then just don't list it. Same thing with email. One kind of nice thing that SEOmatic does is that if you do enter an email address anywhere, it will obfuscate it so that it's a little bit harder for the spam bots to scrape it and pick it up. You can specify the location, street address, locality, zip code, all that kind of good stuff. And you may say, well, why am I doing all this? Well, all of this information is put into something called structured data, which is a way to help Google and other search engines understand what your web page is about. So instead of it looking at your page and kind of guessing who owns it or where they're located, you can actually tell it. And it just will help quite a bit when the information that you put in here is entered into the Google Knowledge Graph. And there's some other information we can put in. These are all optional. Again, you don't have to fill it in if you don't want to. In terms of the DUNS founder, who founded it, the DUNS number, Dun and Bradstreet, and the who founded it, the location. All of these are totally optional. If you want to put it in, great. If you don't, that's fine too. Organization, contact points. This is something that Google has specified. You can add very specific types of numbers, telephone numbers, and Google will show these in the search engine results page so that people can just tap on, say, your billing support number and be able to call it right off the bat. Again, a way to specify this stuff rather than having Google have to guess at it in terms of where it is. The local business type also gives you opening hours. So you can say during what hours of the day that you're open. And again, this is something that Google scrapes and will provide it on the search engine results page so that when they Google your business, they find it, right there on the results page will list the opening hours, and they can decide whether they want to drive off there to visit you or not. The next tab that we're going to get to here is the social media tab. And this is just a place where you can specify the various social media handles that you are using on the site. It's used to generate the Facebook open graph as well as the Twitter cards. The other thing about it is it's just kind of a handy way to tuck all this information away. And it also will generate a same as link in all of your structured data for all of your social media accounts. And that's a way, again, of telling Google, well, you're on this website, but this Facebook page is also the same thing as this website. And this Twitter page is also the same thing as this website, et cetera, for all of your social media pages. We go to the Site Creator tab, and the Site Creator is all about you. It's about the person who is creating the website. We have a lot of the same information that we had on the site identity page. Again, you can specify or not whatever it is that you would like. And this is listed in the structured data as you are the creator of the page. So it's kind of a way of giving you credit for having created the website. You'll see a lot of the same fields that were on the site identity page. One thing that is unique is that on the creator page, we implement the humans.txt standard, which is a human response to the robots.txt. And again, it's just sort of a way of giving thanks or credit to the entity that created the website in a very non-invasive way, because this exists only as a file that is sitting in the website. It's not linked to anywhere, and it's a nice way to give credit for whoever created the site. And in here, as well as in the robots.txt, you can see you can use whatever twig tags and graph variables that you would like in there. So we've given you a really quick overview of what SEOmatic, some of the settings in SEOmatic. Now I'm going to explain to you how this actually works in practice. So we're going to go to the site meta page, and one kind of cool thing that we have here is these buttons that are preview SEO meta display. So if we click on that, this is actually giving us a preview of what our website is going to look like in Google. So this is a Google search engine result page of what it's going to look like. And this is what our Twitter card is going to look like. And this is what Facebook is going to look like with all of the settings that we have chosen. So that's kind of a nice way to preview that stuff. And it's also kind of a nice thing for clients to be able to look at. Then if we do preview meta tags, this is kind of what I think is really interesting. So when you specify all of these settings in SEOmatic, it injects into your template a number of variables the same way that Craft injects the entry variable into your templates. The first of which is the SEOmatic meta, and here you can just see a lot of the same info that we already entered in. It's just showing it all here. And this is just an array in Twig. So you can actually make changes to this, and SEOmatic will do the right thing. And it's just showing you all the variables that it has put in. Again, any of these can be changed by you if you would like. And if you scroll down a little bit more, this is going to show you exactly what the meta is going to look like when it's rendered. So here we've got our nice title. Because we're in dev mode, it's appending that as a nice little reminder. Standard meta in terms of robots, keywords, description, yada, yada, yada. And here's our location because we specified that. Dublin core, basic information. Here's our open graph Facebook. We've got a bunch of stuff. You can see the see alsos that we mentioned before. Here's our Twitter card. And we've got our link to humans.txt, domain verification, and our Google Tag Manager stuff. So this all should look fairly familiar to everybody. We're going to get into the structured data JSON-LD, which is something that a lot of people may not have heard of. And you can see that this is in a script tag of the type application JSON-LD. What happens is browsers completely ignore this. It adds no execution time and very, very little overhead in terms of size to the actual web page. But Google and other search engines actually look for this stuff and they scrape it. And it's called structured data because it's using a vocabulary defined on schema.org that everyone agrees upon and can understand. So here we're telling Google that this website is about a professional service. That's our identity. And all of the information that we filled in for our identity is appearing here. Then we also have a website object, JSON-LD, that is included on the page, telling Google this is a website. It's the same as these various social media accounts. Here's the description, here's the image. The copyright holder is the website identity. And if we go down a little further, it also renders breadcrumbs for you. And if you specified a place, it will render the place for you as well. So this is all nice and well, but you might be wondering, well, what about specific entries? How do I get that information? Because if we've got a blog post, we want the description to be about the blog post, right? We don't want it to be just the standard description that we have site-wide. So SEOmatic has a nice thing in it. It's got a SEOmatic meta field type, which is just a field type that you add to your entries. And I've tucked it away on a meta tab here. And as you can see, it's got the same preview buttons that we saw on the SEOmatic page. But let's skip those for a second and take a look at some of the other things that we have here. So this is going to look really familiar. We've got an SEO title, we've got an SEO description, SEO keywords, and an SEO image. So the cool thing about this is that you can specify any of the title or the description or whatever you like, and SEOmatic will automatically use this instead of the global meta that you set whenever you're on a page that uses this entry. And so for instance, for the title, well, we actually are always just going to take the title from the title field that exists for every entry. So there's no reason for us to retype it every time that we go in here. As you saw, you can actually use entry variables in here as well, if you like. But a nice way to do it is also just have it pull from the title field. So the description, again, we can just put custom text in here if we want, or we can say, you know what, I want to pull from a particular field. And it will actually pull from that field so that you don't have to enter it again. Now, a good example would be if you had a blog, you might say pull from the blog body. And if your blog body happens to be in matrix blocks, that's okay. It can pull from matrix blocks as well. So SEO keywords, very, very similar. They can either be custom from a field or they can be keywords from a field. And the nice thing about this is it uses an algorithm called TextRank that actually will do analysis on the text that you're giving it and pick out the most relevant keywords for you. So you can just say, well, you know, I'm going to take it from the SEO keywords field, or, you know, maybe we would have a blog body field that we might want to pull it from. And I want you to just extract these keywords from it. And it will do that for you. The SEO image is the same thing. You can pick whether it's a custom image or from an existing field. If it's a custom image, you can just add it, or again, in a blog entry, maybe you would have a featured image for the blog, and you can just have it pull from that. And because this field type is on all of your entries, each entry will have unique SEO, and you don't have to do anything else. It will just work. SEOmatic cascades the meta so that it will prefer any data from the entry if it's there, and if it's not, that's okay. It just falls back on whatever is in your global meta. And on a per entry basis, you can also pick other things like the transform, the Twitter card, etc., etc. Very similar to stuff that you've already seen. And the cool thing about this is when you preview it, it's actually going to take all of the information that we gave it and combine it, and it's going to be different depending on what page that we're looking at. So this one happens to be the same, but let's go take a look at this, which is a different page. And as you can see, we've got a different title, we've got a different description, different keywords. And, sorry, just trying to adjust that. When we preview the display, you can see we've got a different title and a different description and different keywords and all that kind of good stuff. And it could be a different image. In this case, it's not, but it just as easily could be. And I want to talk about just one other thing that you may have seen. There is also a main entity of page entry here. So this, if it's present, this will create a additional JSON-LD structured data of whatever type that you pick. It's either creative work, an event, or a product. And then there are subtypes. So for instance, maybe this page is about a music playlist, right? What this does is it tells Google, yes, this is a web page, but the thing that this page is really about is a music playlist. And this helps Google understand what the page is about. And you can also feed it whatever custom information you want. You know, for instance, this music playlist, maybe I would have a custom image that I would be choosing from an album cover or such. And SEOmatic will take care of doing all of that stuff for you automatically. And when you preview the tags, we can see that if we go down, this is all what I showed you before, now we have main entity of page microdata. So when Google reads through this, it says, oh, I didn't save the entry. Gotta save the entry, otherwise you can't preview it. So we'll go back and we'll preview the tags again. All right. So now we've got our main entity of page is a music playlist, and we've got the owner, the image, you know, all this kind of fun stuff. And again, this is all information for Google to be able to understand what your page is about. And it's much, much more effective than just throwing up a meta description and praying that Google is actually going to be able to understand what it is. And there's a ton of stuff in SEOmatic that I haven't shown you. There's also template meta that you can create that will use specific meta when you're on a particular template. And in addition to that, because all of these things are twig variables, you can customize anything that you want. SEOmatic will put the twig variables into your code, and it's going to look exactly as if I had done this, you know, with the twig set command. And you can change any of these, right? So if you have custom twig code that, you know, maybe your client is using the field type to enter data, but you want to add something specific to it, or you want to change some specific behavior, it's all exposed and available to you in Twig. So you can either use it or not. SEOmatic works perfectly without doing any custom Twig, but the flexibility is there if you want it, that you can do all that kind of good stuff. That's it. That's a brief overview of SEOmatic. It's using some pretty modern techniques. I think that anyone who starts using it now is going to be well ahead of the curve in terms of the SEO. And something I've mentioned to a lot of people is that a nice thing about SEOmatic is not just the functionality that it provides, but it's kind of a teaching tool in that it is showing you a lot of what modern SEO looks like, and it's not the snake oil salesman type of stuff that maybe a number of years ago it was and turned you off. There actually are standards now that help you tell the search engines what your page is about, and can make a really big difference both in terms of those search engines understanding your website and also in terms of the results, right? So when you Google something, if you have a main entity of a page that is a recipe, Google will recognize that and it will pull out the image and it will pull out the ingredients list and all that fun stuff for you. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope this makes SEOmatic seem a little bit less intimidating.